To quote the Black Eyed Peas, let's get it started in here. Hi there, welcome into the National Briefing. My name is Kelly Nash, and we are living in some strange times, my friend. We saw something yesterday, talked about it on the show last night. I've had some more time to digest it, and it just seems even odder now than it did when I first heard about it. Judge Zaya Farraquai, I think is how you pronounce the name, had an emergency hearing yesterday in D.C., and this was specifically to address what I guess we're all calling now the White House Correspondents' Dinner shooter. I would just call him would-be assassin number 3. Anyway, this guy has an emergency hearing for the shooter, and we'll start off with Kayla Gaskins. She is the national correspondent for Sinclair Network. Well, it's not a network. It's a bunch of TV channels throughout the country, but pretty left-leaning ownership. And so this is her talking with U.S. Attorney John Fishwick about this emergency hearing in order to apologize to the D.C. shooter for the treatment he's received the last week in jail.
Monday's emergency hearing was held due to the federal judge's grave concerns about Allen's conditions in custody, including what he described as seemingly unprompted solitary confinement after the Department of Corrections placed Allen on suicide watch, a move the defense argued was unnecessary and too severe. The government said Allen had been placed on suicide watch because he made comments about not expecting to survive this trip to Washington.
A suicide watch seems a very appropriate thing to do. They're the ones where the buck stops with. If something bad happens within the jail, they're going to be held responsible.
Allen was removed from solitary confinement before the hearing.
Okay, so this guy spent a grand total of Sunday morning is when he got processed in, Sunday to Sunday. And then Monday morning, he was removed from solitary confinement. And the judge wants to apologize to him for being in solitary confinement for a week in a padded cell. It says it actually cited lack of recreation time. Lack of recreation time? You just attempted to not only assassinate the president, you did shoot a Secret Service agent. And in your manifesto, you talked about how you wanted to kill everybody in the administration as well. And you brought knives with you. So you weren't just willing to shoot people. You wanted to actually get up nice and close and personal and stab them. And why wouldn't this guy be on suicide watch? I mean, think about it. I mean, in his writings, he talked about he's going out in a blaze of glory. I'm going to kill the president. They're going to kill me. Well, you failed in all aspects. Not only did you not kill the president, you didn't kill anybody. You shot a Secret Service agent who thankfully had a bulletproof vest on that saved his life. But then you didn't even get shot. Now, there should still be an investigation into why that didn't take place. But here he is basically uninjured after expecting to die and be remembered for his heroic deeds. Instead, he's 31 years old. He's looking at, 50 years in prison now? The rest of your life, you're going to be in prison. You're going to grow old there, and you'll have all these years and decades to just think about what a tremendous failure you are. Yeah, I would think that guy would be a prime candidate for suicide watch. And, I mean, as that judge, former U.S. attorney pointed out, if he committed suicide in jail, this D.C. jail would be in huge trouble. So they put him in a padded cell, put him on suicide watch. We certainly don't want another Epstein-style situation on our hands. Well, let's go to also left-leaning, and I'm saying that knowing that they're almost tipping over to the left. CNN with Jake Tapper. He's got, is it pronounced Ali Honig, who is the CNN senior legal analyst discussing the situation.
A federal magistrate judge today said that was not based on any known medical assessment. And he actually apologized to the suspect, saying it was partly the court's role to ensure inmates are subjected to fair conditions. Well, I was surprised. What did you make of it all?
Yeah, I did a triple take when I saw that story, Jake. This is a ridiculous statement by this judge. First of all, to compare this would-be assassin of the president to the January 6th defendants is ludicrous. The January 6th defendants should have been prosecuted. That was rightful. However, most of them were prosecuted for misdemeanors, for nonviolent crimes. Even the most serious January 6th defendants were not charged with using a firearm in the course of violence like this individual. Were certainly not charged with attempted murder or attempted assassination. So that's a ridiculous comparison.
Yeah, did I fail to mention that he was making the comparison to January 6th defendants? And that's of particular note because this judge, Farquhar, oversaw a bunch of the sentencing of January 6th defendants and was none too happy when they received a pardon from Donald Trump. And he makes reference to that in his statements. And here, this is part of what he was talking about. None of this adds up. There are people convicted of more serious crimes were held in less restrictive conditions than Allen was being held in. What is he talking about? What is a more serious crime than attempting to decapitate the United States government? There is no more serious crime. So this guy's already shown you, I don't understand anything. There is no more serious crime than what this guy committed. None. Zero. And there's some horrific crimes that happen all the time in this country and all around the world, but there's nothing worse than decapitating the entire federal government, you moron. But he goes on to say that this is not this D.C. jail's first go-around with people engaged in alleged political violence. And I'll note that most of the people from January 6th were held in better conditions than Mr. Allen has been held in. Who on January 6th fired a weapon? Outside of the police officer who killed that young lady, Miss Babbitt. Anybody? No, there was no guns even brought to the situation. They didn't bring any guns. They weren't trying to kill anybody. And by the way, speaking of January 6th, this is attorney Thomas Kenneth. And he's actually he's representing a bunch of January 6ers, and they're suing the federal government.
It's bizarre, and I have to tell you, it's particularly close to home for my firm because we represent about 50 January 6 defendants who, we're now preparing to sue the federal government for what they endured, conditions that we wouldn't find appropriate for terrorists, solitary confinement for months, years, denied religious services, denied the right to get a haircut, to communicate with their attorneys effectively, and never once did anybody in the judiciary extend them anything even close to an apology. So,
yeah, think about that, Judge. These people spent in his months, and in some instances, years in solitary confinement. And what were they actually accused of attempting to do? They weren't even attempting to kill the president. Or I know that you like to all, that there was a chant going around about hang Mike Pence or something like that. Nobody actually tried that. They were just, I don't even know how many people were involved with that. Is that a sensible offense? I don't know those things. But I do know that nobody attempted to kill anybody on January 6th. And I do know that there were people, as he's pointing out, that were held without access to attorneys for months. They were denied haircuts, for God's sakes. This guy has been in a padded cell for 1 week, and you call a hearing, an emergency hearing, to apologize. My God, man, if you can't, I don't know how to get rid of this guy. Because I would think, first off, who appointed him? Well, it turns out when you're in a district court like this, you're voted on by the other judges, not by politicians. So there's no so can you impeach him? That'd be great. However, his boss is a guy named Judge Boasman. Does that name ring a bell? Or Boasberg? Does that name ring a bell? That is Donald Trump's sworn mortal enemy, basically. And Judge Boasberg, they tried to get him impeached. What was it? Maybe a year ago? Not even a year ago? Over this whole Arctic frost thing. And if you don't remember Arctic frost or understand what that's about, that was a bunch of senators on the right, including South Carolina's own Lindsey Graham, had their phone records taken by the FBI. Typically, when you're going to go after a representative like that, the FBI has to let them know that we're listening to your calls, that we're looking at your stuff, blah, 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 blah. Judge Boasberg said, nah, don't tell them. Keep that one on the DL. So they tried to impeach Boasberg. And it turns out that the House, yes, the Republican-led House, decided to not impeach him and said that where's the quote on that one? Something about how we don't want to go again. Impeachment is a improper remedy when you disagree with a ruling from a federal judge. I'm not even disagreeing with Boasberg or Farquhar's rulings. I'm disagreeing with their attitudes. They are not fair, impartial jurists. Somebody needs to do something. And it's not just in this court, it's many of the district courts. D.C., yes. Southern District of Manhattan, yes. The Ninth Circuit, yes. We have a bunch of activist judges. And look, they're going to say that the Supreme Court is stacked and packed against them. Well, thank God there's somebody with some sanity. That's what it looks when you have somebody who's sane, actually making legal decisions that are based in sanity. That seems like it's stacked and packed against you.
The left hates it when we tell it straight, which is exactly why they're going to hate what's next on the National Briefing.